Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. It is a super Saturday of racing coast to coast. DRF handicapper Mike Beer and I will take a look at three major Grade 1 races and Breeders' Cup preps. The Jockey Club Gold Cup at Belmont, the Awesome Again Stakes at Santa Anita, two important Breeders' Cup Classic preps right there. We'll also discuss the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic at Belmont, a prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on some well-bred maidens in race number 5 at Belmont on Saturday, while David Aragona of Timeform US spotlights the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. JK, Jonathan Kinchin's Play of the Day, well, he's got a pick 3 and a daily double at Belmont for you, plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We kick off Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, Naira analyst, you found a first-time starter at Belmont that ran off the screen.
2-year-old colt trained by George Weaver by the great Candy Ride sire. The horse's name is Vacoma. He made his debut last week at Belmont Park. Let's take a look at the replay. This horse ran very well in this race. We're going to pick it up at the top of the stretch. He cruised up on this field 3 wide through the turn, though, and he's just going to pour it on here. Take it over, kick clear. I thought he finished very well in this race, Dan. He'll stop the clock in 1:08 and 4, 86 Beyer speed figure. And this horse might have a bit of a future. His dam was a Grade 1 winner sprinting on dirt. This is the family of Mr. Greeley. This horse ran really well first time out. I would also just point out the horse that runs second to him there, Kelly Breen, first-time starter named Epic Dreamer. He might be another horse you want to keep an eye on.
That is a race that looks like a key race down the road, and certainly Vacoma looks like a stakes horse to follow. My horse to watch this week is already in the stakes division, and that's Axelrod. And this is a horse, hard to believe that he was offered for $50,000 in his second lifetime start, because he has turned into a bona fide graded stakes horse for trainer Mike McCarthy. Let's go back to last week's Pennsylvania Derby. McKinsey, of course, was one of the big names in this race. We see Axelrod on the outside. He followed McKinsey through the turn, had a big look at it turning into the stretch, and he just couldn't stay with McKinsey late. Bob Baffer having McKinsey ready to roll off of the layoff. I think 1 1/8 is just a little bit far for Axelrod, a son of Warrior's Reward. I really like him at 1 mile and a 16th, and I'd love to see him contest a race like the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile or the Cigar Mile. Plenty of options for this Mike McCarthy trainee. However, we might see him in the Clark Handicap. Heck, we might even see him in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. That might be too tough, but put this horse in your DRF Horse Watch and Stable Mail, because this is the kind of horse you might want to follow as a 4-year-old. I think he's going to get better with more maturity. That's Axelrod, a son of Warrior's Reward. Let's get to some handicapping. The Jockey Club Gold Cup is the feature race at Belmont on Saturday. Let's throw up the field for Saturday's DRF Race of the Day. It's the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup, one of 4 graded stakes races at Belmont on Saturday. This race part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series, a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. For expanded stakes previews of most of the major graded stakes races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover every horse in every one of these major stakes races. Mike diversifies 4 to 5 on the morning line, and deservedly so. We'll get to him in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about Mendelssohn, who burst onto the scene this year with his win in the UAE Derby. A lot of folks thought Gold Rail aided, Speed Bias aided. He won by 100. He came to North America, he bombed in the Derby. It was at least nice to see him get back on track last time out in the Travers.
Yeah, I guess that is true. When you go back to that UAE Derby, where he obviously just had everything go his own way, and was really impressive winning. As time has gone on since that race, he's just starting to look a little bit more and more dressed up off that race, but it was nice to see him come back in the Travers. We'll look at the replay of that race right now. And he bounces back with a more respectable effort here. He showed his speed, which it feels like that's the real running style he wants to employ. He wants to use his speed. He got to the lead, and he was just no match for Catholic Boy in the stretch here. In a lot of ways, yes, he took a step forward in here, but he also had the run of the race here, Dan. He's no match for Catholic Boy. He's going to plug on for second. I don't know. This race didn't really do a lot to turn me around on this horse. I just feel like he's in way too tough in a race like this.
Now, you mentioned that they like to use his early speed. The problem is he's probably not as fast as the horse to catch and the horse to beat, and that is last year's Jockey Club Gold Cup winner Diversify, who certainly has not lost a step this year. He's been awesome in his last 2, just stretching fields out from start to finish.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, he was good winning this race last year, where he just got to the lead and he held off a couple of pretty good horses at the end of that race. But he's just come back and he's been even better this year. His his last two races in particular are really, really strong. They're legitimately good and fast performances, and both times it feels like they've taken it to a new level with him. Irad Ortiz just lets him roll from the start. Let's look at the Whitney right now. This is, sort of the career-defining win for this horse right now. He just went right to the top in here. He went a fast pace from the start and just ran this field out of the race, and you see him still going here over that sloppy track. His win two back over a mile and a quarter Suburban, same thing, Dan. Blasted out of the gate, ran him out of the race, held on to the end. He's in career best form right now.
He is in career best form. He was unfazed by that long delay due to the weather. You see that track is soupy. Big delay. No sweat for Diversify. He's the one to catch. He's the one to beat. I'm hoping that Mendelssohn tries to run with him early because I'm going to take a little stab against with Thunder Snow. And Thunder Snow might be as dressed up as Mendelssohn by virtue of his win on the Dubai World Cup the same night that Mendelssohn won the UAE Derby. He was able to get to the lead, he got to the rail, and he kept on going. Let's watch the stretch run of the Dubai World Cup where he showed his speed to stretch out the field turning into the stretch, and he is just much the best over West Coast in a pretty decent group. Thunder Snow, while perhaps dressed up by this performance, he has some other races on dirt and Dubai that are pretty good. Winner of the UAE Derby. He's unfortunately best known for the antics in the Kentucky Derby last year where he basically just refused to run, and that's Thunder Snow. He's a bit of a quirky horse. But I'm hoping Mendelssohn is the horse that shows at least a little bit of speed and tries to push Justify. Maybe Thunder Snow can sit third. He's got some good races on dirt. He'll be an okay price. Small stab with Thunder Snow over Diversify. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick on the Jockey Club Gold Cup undercard. It's race number 5. It's a maiden race with some salty pedigrees, and Nicole's got all the info.
Hi everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate to take a look at a really intriguing maiden race on Saturday's stakes-loaded card at Belmont Park. Here's the field of 2-year-old fillies who will go a mile on the turf, and any discussion of pedigree in this race has to start with the 4 fillies in here by leading turf sire Kitten's Joy, who is actually currently also leading the general sire list. He's represented here by Silver Kitten, Tweety Kitten, Sweet Timing, and Blue Jean Kitten. The Kitten's Joys tend to do better with distance, so you have to think that these will appreciate the mile. Let's spotlight a couple of other well-bred horses in this field, though, and one of the intriguing first-time starters is Balin Rose, a $1.6 million yearling purchase, making her career debut. The Warfront filly is the second foal out of the Group 3 winning Galileo mare Aloof, and her first foal, also by Warfront, is a winner in England. Now, out of Group 1 winner Airwave, Aloof is a full sister to stakes winner Orator and a half sister to stakes winner Meow. Now, Meow is the dam of Group 1 winners Churchill and Clemmy, both by Galileo, so a really productive family cross down there. Going a mile on debut, a tall order for a juvenile, but Balin Rose has got a strong work tab, and the distance seems well within her scope from a pedigree standpoint. Another bred to relish the distance is Tip Act Tap It, a full sister to the classy Time and Motion, who you're watching right now in her biggest career win in the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup at Keeneland. Very game in a 3-way photo here. Now, Tip At Tap It should be eligible to rebound off an 8th on debut on a yielding Saratoga course. You might get some value because of that finish, and she's got the foundation of a 2-turn race under her belt, unlike some of these others here who are debuting at the mile. Tip It Tap It, of course, by Route Sire Tap It from a classy Darby Dan family. Well, as I mentioned, plenty of stakes at Belmont on Saturday, stakes out at Santa Anita as well. We're looking at all of the action coast to coast for you here on DRF TV. Stay tuned for more on Out of the Gate.
DRF Sports Forum Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Forum delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsforum. Enter code DRF Sports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Here's the field for the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic Invitational to be contested at 1.5 miles at Belmont on Saturday, carded as race number 8. For expanded stakes previews of most of the graded stakes races all weekend long and lots more, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Robert Bruce, the number 1, is the morning line favorite for trainer Chad Brown, coming off a nice win in the Arlington Million. This horse is 8 for 9 lifetime. And listen, he's got fast races and he's proven it 1.5 miles.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are true. This is a horse who has not run a bad race yet. We've only seen him 3 times so far in North America, but he's run well in all of those races. We'll go back and get you a replay of his stateside debut. This was the Grade 3 Fort Marcy. The pace was slow. You can see him sort of in behind horses. This trip actually works out very well for him, but you'll see him split horses here with the best finish at the end and get up to prevail. The horse right to his outside there, the 7. That Spring Quality was also back in this field. He ran an underrated race here in the Fort Marcy off a wide trip, and he's been in good form as well. Both of these horses, big contenders in this race, but this is a great field and a lot of horses can win.
This pace situation is a bit uncertain, and it's got to be unsettling for you because your top selection in this race is a one-run closer, a talented one-run closer, but any one-run closer needs a little help.
Yeah, you don't want to be compromised in races of this quality, that's for sure. Sadler's Joy, my pick, is a horse who tends to have things up against him in races like this because he doesn't have a lot of speed and he wants to sit last and make one run through the stretch. The thing with Sadler's Joy is he just runs every single time. He's one of those horses, he needs a little bit of pace. He doesn't need a huge pace. He just needs a fair setup in front of him. I'm hoping he gets it here because I feel like he might be an okay price this time. He tends to take money. He's been 2-1 in his last 2 starts against a lot of these horses. This time I think it'll be a better price. Let's go 2 starts back on his card here. The Bowling Green at Saratoga. And this is what Sadler's Joy does. You can see him. He's way back there right now, but he's starting to close at the end. Channel Maker, also in this race, is ahead of him. There's Sadler's Joy. Also behind him is Highland Sky, who's going to race on without enough late in here. But Sadler's Joy, you're going to see how close he makes it at the end. And listen, Channel Maker's also making it close. He's going to get there to dead heat. But Sadler's Joy racing on, gets between horses late. Good performance, I thought, from him here. Last time he didn't kick like this, Dan, but that race just didn't set up for him at all. And I think he was way badly compromised last time. I'm hoping this race sets up better, and I think he's a fair price this time.
I want an up-and-comer, and that's Carrick, a horse that needs to improve off his lifetime best. But being a lightly raced 3-year-old, making only his 5th lifetime start, he has license to improve for trainer Tom Morley. He's 3 for 4 in his career, and his big win was last time out in the Grade 1 Secretariat at Arlington, a race at the same distance as the Arlington Million on the same day and had a faster final time than Robert Bruce did in winning the Million. We'll go back to his race 2 starts back. That was at the Kent at Delaware, and he kind of gets impeded here turning into the stretch. I'm not sure if he would have won with a clean trip. He's going to get bumped here, and then he finishes evenly. But this is a horse that I think is just going to appreciate extra distance. He stretched out in the Secretariat. He got a beautiful trip and ride to win under John Velasquez that day. He's going to have to stretch out to 1.5 miles, but he at least has some tactical speed. Some more tactical speed than a horse like Sadler's Joy, and maybe a little bit more upside down the road. He's going to be a good price, but again, he's going to have to improve. I want Carrick. I'm also using a lot of Robert Bruce in any kind of multiple race wagers. Let's head out to Southern California. The Awesome Again Stakes is a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 Awesome Again Stakes at Santa Anita on Saturday. $300,000 is the purse, carded as race number 11. We're going 9 furlongs. It's a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. For expanded stakes previews of many of the graded stakes races all weekend long and lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. You can catch our colleague Matt Bernier on NBCSN beginning at 7 p.m. p.m. Eastern. He'll be covering the Awesome again and lots more. Mike, 2-horse race on the morning line, 2-horse race on paper. Probably going to be a 2-horse race coming down to the wire. The best handicap in the horse in the country, however, is Accelerate.
Yeah, it's not much of a betting race in that regard, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here when Accelerate hooks up with West Coast, who's returning off of a layoff here. Because West Coast was good when we last saw him. It's just been a while since he's been out on the racetrack, and while he's been away, Accelerate has just been making short work of these fields out in Southern California. Let's look at a replay because everything's really out there on paper for you to see. We're going to pick up the Pacific Classic at the top of the stretch, Dan, but the race is already over. Accelerate has blown this field out of the water, and he's going to cross the wire 12 plus lengths in front with a 115 Beyer speed figure. This horse just keeps getting better every time they send him out to the racetrack, and I think his recency gives him a real edge on West Coast.
I agree with that. This race was over pretty much a half mile in, and he just brushed to the front and dominated, as you just saw. He's got the big recency advantage on West Coast. Perhaps, though, the great equalizer there is Bob Baffert. We know that he excels off of layoffs. He's got West Coast focused for the Classic. Maybe he's using this race as a prep, but a lot of folks forgot how good West Coast got during the summer and fall of his 3-year-old campaign. Giant win in the Travers, giant win in the Pennsylvania Derby, good 3rd place finish as a 3-year-old in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and in his first start at 4, he ran a gigantic race. Let's go back to the Pegasus World Cup, where he's just in against Gunrunner, who was horse of the world perhaps at this point. West Coast tried him on the turn, he tries him again at the 8th pole. He's just no match for Gunrunner, a real superstar of the game. He earned a 117 Beyer speed figure, did West Coast, and he went to Dubai. We saw the World Cup earlier on and talking about Thunder Snow, and that was a day where you had to have the lead in the rail. West Coast conceded the lead and the rail to Thunder Snow going into the first turn, and it was good night Irene. He ran a solid second. Unfortunately, he's been body sore since that race. It's taken a long time for Baffert to get him back to the races, but I don't think he's here to embarrass himself. I'm really interested to see what we get from West Coast in this race, because I have a feeling that the West Coast we saw last year was certainly better than the Accelerate we saw last year. The problem for West Coast is Accelerate's a lot better than he was last year as well. It's going to be a fun race, the Awesome again. JK's play of the day. He's got a pick 3 and a daily double at beautiful Belmont Park on Saturday. And David Aragona's Timeform U.S. Spotlight focuses on the very competitive Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. We're going to head out to Belmont, Breeders' Cup preview day, like 3 Grade 1s, some exciting races, the Vosburg, the Hirsch Classic, also the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Look, I'm going to start this pick 3 sequence. I'm also going to give you a double, but I'm going to start the pick 3 in race 7 with the Vosburg. Imperial Hint ran a huge race at Saratoga. Whether this is a prep or he's in it to win this one, he's going to run really well, and he's going to be really tough to beat. 1 to 5 on the morning line, no value there in the win pool, but you can add a little bit of value if you use him as an ice cold single in a pick 3 into a pick 3 sequence. Going on to the next race, race 8, the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Classic. I'm going to use 3 horses in here. The 1, Robert Bruce, is an obvious based on his run in the Arlington Million, but he doesn't have to win this race. He ran here at Belmont previously, was 6th to some of these horses, so he doesn't necessarily have to win here. He's going to probably be overbet, being by Chad, coming off the Arlington Million win, but I'm still going to use him defensively. The 3, Sadler's Joy, a talented horse, just needs the right setup, but can win any turf race in America with on the right day with the right trip. And then I'm going to use the 8, Channel Maker, who was closing in to that slow pace up at Saratoga where Glorious Empire wired the field. I think Channel Maker could be a little bit more difficult here, has run well at Belmont in the past as well. So I'll use those 3 horses, the 1, the 3, and the 8, to close out the pick 3 and to start a double here. What I'm going to take a look at doing here is Opry. I think Opry, the 5 horse for Todd Pletcher, was scheduled to start on the turf back at Saratoga, was rained off the turf. Didn't run so well, ran 3rd that day. Then Todd runs the horse back in a stake, the With Anticipation as a maiden. The horse misses the break, still wins. I think he's a very talented horse. I think that one's going to be pretty tough. And the Pilgrim, I'm going to single there to close out the pick 3 and also to start a double into the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Right here, I'm going to use 2 horses. I'm going to use Diversify and I'm going to use Mendelssohn. It's a dangerous use because they possibly could hurt each other's chances, but I think that the riders, Irad and Ryan Moore, are going to probably be aware of that. I think they're going to kind of stay off of each other. I think Mendelssohn will either go to the lead and Diversify will sit off, or vice versa. I think whoever is on the lead is going to have the advantage. I don't think they're going to ding-dong on the front end and hurt each other's chances. So I'm going to pick for one of those two to stick around in the 1.25 mile race for Belmont leading into the Breeders' Cup Classic. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, this is David Aragona for this week's Timeform US Spotlight. It's a big day of racing at Belmont Park on Saturday. The feature is the Jockey Club Gold Cup, a Grade 1, but there are 2 other Grade 1 races, also the Grade 3 Pilgrim on the card. Some of the stakes races didn't come up that competitive. Diversify is a heavy favorite in the Gold Cup, and Imperial Hint looks awfully tough to beat in the Vosburg. But the 2 middle races are actually really interesting. The Pilgrim's competitive, and we're going to take a look at the 8th race. It's the Grade 1 Turf Classic. It drew a field of 8, but this is a pretty evenly matched bunch. All of these horses have legitimate chances. The horse on the rail, Robert Bruce, is the 2-1 morning line favorite. It seems like he is the horse to beat in this race pretty clearly. Was winning the Arlington Million last time. We'll just take a look at his recent PPs. He's 8 for 9 lifetime. His only loss came 2 back in the Manhattan when things just didn't go quite right for him. But this horse has been pretty much untouchable in his other races. It didn't look like he was ever really going to get there in the Arlington Million last time, but when he really is able to wind up his run, get into top gear, he just mows down fields and really comes with a strong late finish. We saw that last time at Arlington Park. You would think that stretching out to 1.5 miles is only going to help this horse, because if you watch his 12 furlong race in Chile to conclude his career there, or his campaign there, he also that day was just kind of grinding it out. He just seemed to get stronger as the race went on. So I think he's got a ton of stamina. I'm not really concerned about the extra 2 furlongs. He's facing a lot of the same rivals that beat him 2 back in the Manhattan, but that was a race that really turned into a sprint around the 1/2 mile 3/8 pole, and that just doesn't really work for this horse. He's more of a grinding type that likes to just outstay his foes, so I think this race is probably going to work more in his favor. He's going to be a very short price. I'm kind of worried about that, but he is way the horse to beat, and I just simply can't be against him. However, at bigger prices, there are some other horses that you want to consider and that I would use as backups or underneath him if you're playing exotic wagers. The other horse to look at is obviously Spring Quality, who's the horse that beat him in the Manhattan 2 back. Now, Spring Quality was actually supposed to race in the Arlington Million in August, and he had a bit of a hiccup. I think he got sick prior to that race, so they ended up rerouting him to the Sword Dancer off, perhaps slightly inadequate preparation. And I thought he got a pretty good trip in the Sword Dancer and just came up a little bit short that day, but he ran another solid race. I've always liked this horse, and I've always thought that the more distance was going to be better for him. The Sword Dancer was a race that was really dominated on the front end. I think Channel Maker got a very good trip that day, and that helped result in his second place finish, whereas Glorious Empire, the winner, led the entire way. I thought Spring Quality ran well, and I think he's got a very good shot in this Turf Classic. He's one that I'm definitely using, but again, he's not going to be the biggest price, and there are some others to consider. Sadler's Joy might be a horse that a lot of people jump off the bandwagon of coming into this Turf Classic, because he just never got untracked in the Sword Dancer last time, never really ran his race. Very atypical for him, because he's a horse that usually does show up every time, even though he doesn't win that often. I thought he ran extremely well in the Manhattan, going all the way back to that June 9th race, actually 3 back for him. He kind of made a very early move when they started sprinting around the far turn, and I just thought he had every right to kind of flatten out at the end of that race. He also ran well over a turf course he probably doesn't like that much at the Bowling Green. He's one that I want to use. I think he's a horse that definitely has a good chance to finish in the money in this race. It's just, is he finally going to win a race? The stretch out to 1.5 miles helps him probably, but I just don't quite trust him on top. Let's take a look at the pace projector for this race, because I think it's important to discuss the fact that there's not really a clear front runner in this field. You see the number 2 horse, High Happy, and the number 4, Carrick, out on the lead. Neither of those horses are really confirmed front runners, but they might find themselves close up just because there's a real lack of pace in this race. And you see on the bottom of this pace projector, it says horses lacking pace data are number 5. That's because the number 5 horse is Teodoro, is coming in from Europe, and we just don't have any real data to make a determination of where he's going to be in this race early on. But based on Teodoro's European form, I think there's a pretty good chance he could be on the lead here. He led all the way 2 back when he won that race at Haydock, and he actually earned a 1:20 time form rating for that race, which really translates quite well to the time formula speed figures that the other horses in this race are running. You can usually make pretty good comparisons between those, and that puts him right in this race. He's been in some tough handicap races throughout the past year or so in England, and usually that form translates pretty well here. tired. The last race that he tried where he didn't run so well, that was going 1 3/4 miles, much farther than this race, a much more demanding ask than this 12 furlong turf classic over an American style course. Teodoro is going to be a big price in this race for some connections that people are not familiar with. I think he's got a big chance to get on the board here. I don't know if he's good enough to beat Robert Bruce, because I do think Robert Bruce is formidable, but Teodoro is a horse I definitely want to use somewhere as a backup or underneath. So those are my ideas in the turf classic. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst. You got something in Southern California?
Yeah, I just wanted to go to Santa Anita for the Chandelier for 2-year-old fillies, the Grade 1. This is just one of those situations, Dan, where there are a couple of horses coming out of a Grade 1 race out there that I just didn't love. They're the 2 favorites on the morning line. I wanted to bet against those 2 horses, and I want to do it with Bob Baffert with this horse, Durlou, number 5. She's coming out of a maiden win, only run once. They sprinted her 6.5 furlongs at Del Mar. Let's look at her replay, because this is one of those fillies where I feel like sprinting isn't really what she wants to do. She's bred to go longer. She's just getting warmed up here in the stretch. You're going to see her overtake the horse on the lead right now, and she just gets stronger as the race gets down towards the end. I really feel like she wants to go a longer distance, and they're going to stretch her right out for her second career start. Since this win, Baffert threw a bunch of 6 and 7 furlong works into her before he sharpened her up again for her last 2. I think distance is the key for her. I don't like the 2 favorites. I want to bet this horse.
Lots of stakes action at Belmont and Santa Anita. My best bet is at Delaware Park. Race number 11 is the Newcastle Stakes, and I have a 6-1 shot on the morning line. That's the number 3. Win, place, or show, Oh No, who won the Newcastle Stakes last year as a 3-year-old and then took on some salty competition at Laurel before going on the shelf for 277 days. Let's go to his return, his first start as a 4-year-old, and he had the misfortune to catch an extremely inside speed favoring track and a 12-time winner trained by Jorge Navarro, Sing Another Song, who was able to control this pace on the lead. Win, place, show, or no is getting tired late, but he's going to hold on for second, and I think all things considered, off this long layoff, it was a rock-solid performance. I think the connections have probably circled this race ever since they realized it was going to take him a long time to get back to the races. He's got some tactical speed. Obviously, he loves Delaware Park. Again, 6-1 on the morning line for the 3. Win, place, or show, Oh No, at Delaware Park. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on social media. On Twitter, follow at DRF Video. And for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, also follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.